Jubin, for all of your leadership. So as Jubin said, I'm Jeff Oxendine. I am really pleased to be with you here today. Just a little bit more about my background. He talked a little bit about my different roles that I've had, but just a little bit about my story is that I grew up in Fairfield. I wish I could see you all. I wasn't, but I grew up in Fairfield, and I'm not sure if anyone else is from that area. When I was growing up, I really didn't know. I didn't really know it was possible, nor did my friends as well, in terms of college education and in terms of careers. We really didn't get exposed at all in our community to what different career paths would be, why go to college. Most people did not go to college. Most people were just trying to kind of survive and get jobs. And a lot of people went into the military because the Travis Air Force Base that was there. And so in any case, I really, when I was in high school, I was not a good student. I was more of an athlete. And I really didn't know why to go to college. And I didn't really have any role models or mentors. And so fortunately, my parents pushed me kicking and screaming, into college. And I went to Chico State, and really was happy that I went to Chico because it was a great place for me to learn and grow. And at first, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a PE major, and I just was really focused on being an athlete and having a good time. But I was pretty lost on the career side of it. Unlike many of you, I was not interested in being a doctor. I was not good at math and science, and really didn't see myself as healing people, though I was very interested in social justice. I'm a Native American. I'm from the Lumbee Indian tribe of North Carolina. And because of my tribe has a lot of really serious health issues, my family as well, a lot of health inequities, experienced a lot of racism and discrimination. And then growing up in Fairfield, I really had a passion for saying, okay, I'm really going to be somebody who helps empower people to have better health and to have more social justice, more racial justice. And I was really passionate about those kind of issues, but I really didn't know what to do with it. Fortunately, at Chico, I stumbled onto this major called Community Health, Community Services, and they had a healthcare management major, and I decided to pursue that. Particularly, I wanted to increase access to care and quality of care for people of color and people from under-resourced backgrounds. And so I pursued that, and the more I got into it, the more I really enjoyed it. But I really wasn't sure if I could do it or not. And I was fortunate. We're talking about internships today. I was fortunate to have an internship quite by chance between my junior and senior year at Chico, where I found this flyer on the wall the night before it was due, and got my professor to write me a letter of recommendation, and my roommate helped me type up the application. And I ended up applying for this program. That was an internship program to help students to get into the health field. And I had my interview on my 21st birthday. I was sure that I blew it, so I kind of ruined my 21st birthday. But then I got a letter saying, guess what? You're in this program. And it was coordinated through UC Berkeley School of Public Health. I got placed in a hospital, so working in healthcare, health administration, which is what I was interested in. And I got to exposure to UC Berkeley, which I thought as a Chico State student, I would never get to go to some place like Berkeley. And it just turned out that this experience really changed my life and launched my health career. I got a job from my internship. I knew I wanted to go into public health and health administration. I got great exposure and experience about how it worked. I could put that on my resume and on my graduate school application. I got mentors who helped open doors for me. And again, I got connected to Berkeley where I learned all about, my mother was the only other person in either side of my family who'd gone to college. She's a school teacher. No one had ever gone to grad school. So I learned about from Berkeley, like, how do you apply to graduate school? How do you get in? Those kind of things. And so really fortunately, the kid from Fairfield and Chico State, who started out with no direction whatsoever, I ended up getting accepted to Berkeley School of Public Health and Business School for the MBA MPH program there. And I went on to be able to become a health executive in an underserved community, which was my goal. I did that for a while. And while I was doing that, I had a lot of imposter syndrome at UC Berkeley too. So just realized, hey, that I got there. No one else was from a state school. No one else was from, everyone was older than I was, and everybody seemed a lot smarter and more experienced than I was. So I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of doubts, but I kind of keep my eye focused on what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And that I knew I could achieve my authentic health career. I knew what I wanted to really do. So I got through it and got to achieve my goals. I got the most job offers of anybody coming out of the program, which was really great. And then I was, as a health executive, I went back to my Fairfield experience, and I wanted to give more students, and the internship experience I wanted to give more students opportunities to experience what I did, which is the exposure of an internship, the experience, finding the mentors, finding your career direction, learning information to level the playing field. So I started a nonprofit called Health Career Connection, which we'll talk a lot about a little bit later, which I've led for 32 years to inspire and empower undergraduate students, particularly first generation, low income and BIPOC students, to pursue the health career that best suits them, and to stay in life just like I did, get jobs, get mentors, get into graduate school, those kind of things. So I did that on the side. As Jubin mentioned, I also made a big career shift and went from being a health executive to teaching at UC Berkeley, back where I started. And I actually taught at Chico first, and then Berkeley, and then Harvard, and then I worked in academia supporting students to go into health careers. And then, as Jubin mentioned, I work on a statewide level to help build California's future health workforce and have opportunity for people like you to become the health leaders and professionals we need and to live your authentic health career. So I'm living proof that through internships, through mentorship, through perseverance and overcoming imposter syndrome and those things, which I've still experienced those kind of things, that you can live your authentic health career and make the impact that you want to have. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you for listening to my background. I hope it's relevant to your experiences, and I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive in. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to dive into our session today. There we go. So you see this picture here, which these are students from that I've worked with over the years who are living their authentic health career now. These are all alumni of Health Career Connection, people that I worked with when they were undergraduate students. And you can see in this picture, they're all smiling because they are people who are living their authentic health careers now. In this picture are doctors, are nurse practitioners, are public health professionals, medical students, behavioral health folks. They're smiling because they are on their way to making the kind of impact that they want to have in the lives they want to lead. And I'm going to insert your picture there with me down the road, because I'm confident you're going to be going in that path today. So what I'm going to share with you are things I shared with them and thousands of other students that I've worked with over the years. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm having a little technical difficulty. There we go. So I guess, Jubin, if I will be able to see what people enter in the chat, because I'd love to see a little bit more about who you are so I can help tailor my conversation. So if everybody in the chat can enter just your school, your major, your year in school, just so I can see who's here, and tapping into your passion, like what's one health issue that you're really passionate about, and what's your current health career direction? What I mean by health career direction is, are you on your way to becoming a doctor, a PA, a pharmacist, a health executive, a behavioral health practitioner, a nurse or nurse practitioner? So all right, you already did some of this, Jubin, as far as, so this is who's here. Great. We've got some folks that have graduated community college post-bac. That's excellent. That's great. Welcome to everyone. And folks, if you can go ahead and put that in the chat too, that's good to see. All right, Los Medanos, that's great. I did some work out in Los Medanos Hospital when it was there. I'm not sure if that's there any longer. I did that. I was right by Los Medanos College. So we've got folks that are in second years. We've got people that are interested in becoming a nurse, a pediatrician, PA, excellent. Love that focus on helping underserved communities. All right, UC Davis in the house, UC Riverside. Excellent. That's great. This is really helpful. Thank you for sharing. Excellent. Santa Monica, on your way to being a doctor. That's great. San Bernardino. Go Bears, UC Berkeley. I love this great range of schools we have here. UCLA, Yuba College, great. UCR, Oklahoma State. All right. Mesa. This is really helpful. This is good. So we've got a nice range of people from different types of schools and backgrounds and different types of career interests. And excellent. Jubin, you've done a great job of recruiting folks here, as always. So what I'm going to do now is continue to see who you are. And then we're going to dive into, here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what are some hot and emerging health career options? How can you choose the one that best suits you? I call it your authentic health career. And then we're going to talk about the bulk of the time is going to be spent about the topic. The main topic here is finding and applying for paid health internships. And then we're going to have a lot of time for discussion. So I'm just also wondering in the chat, if you can just put in, are there some, given the topics that we're going to hear to talk about, what are the hot and emerging health careers? How do you choose yours? How do you get internships, which I know is the main focus? Are there any particular questions that you want answered today, that before we go, you want to make sure that we've answered a certain question that you have? So take a minute and just think about it. Is there anything else you want to be sure we talk about today? And Jubin's right. When you put things in the chat, don't put don't put acronyms. We want to be able to know more, like the person who put Cerritos College. That's great. That's probably CCC, but they put Cerritos College. All right, Mesa, thank you. High school internship without any previous experience. Okay, we will definitely, as a community college student, we'll definitely talk about that. Definitely going to be talking about resumes, paid summer research internships for the international students. We'll do our best on that one. All right. Yeah. Shadowing is not easy to do in this environment. I love that one. We're going to talk definitely about how to sell yourself for internships. All right. These are great questions. So we're going to move on. And if I don't get to them, then go ahead and put them in the chat a little bit later during the Q&A session that we have. So I'm just starting with, before we get into the internships themselves, I'm going to start with a little bit broader focus here, because it's important as you approach securing internships, it's important to know the lay of the land. And it's important to know your career direction. So we're going to focus a little bit more on your career direction first. I know many of you already have a clear direction. Some of you may be thinking about it, but it's important when you look for internships, you want to look for those that are aligned with the career direction that you're most interested in, or that will give you some exposure to the type of career that you want to learn more about. Especially for those of you that are first and second years, even third years in college, being able to explore and pursue different paths. It's okay to find out something. It's okay to find out that the path you thought you really wanted to do is something you don't want to do. That's valuable too. Or to come on to something that's really, that never existed before. And now that it's really what you want to do. So I'm going to start a little bit more broadly, giving you a bigger picture, and then we're going to hone in on the internships. But as we're going through this, the more clear you can be about what you want to do and what you want to get out of an internship, the better you'll be able to pick the right kind of internship experience for you. So as Jubin mentioned, I work on a statewide level in California on health workforce and diversity. I've been working really hard I was the co-director of the California Future Health Workforce Commission. We've been working really hard to be able to in California, work with the leading employers, the leading health professions, schools, all types of leaders in California about what are the health professions that are going to be most needed in California now and 10 years from now. And many of you are going to be right in your stride of being health professionals. And what are the opportunities for people like you coming into the field? I will say that it's the best time in the last 35 plus years to be coming into the health field, because there are so many opportunities. There are so many roles that are going to be increasing in demand, that are good jobs that you're going to be able to really have an impact in. And a lot of the people who are health professionals now are retiring because of COVID, because of being just older and at retirement age. And so there's a real need for all of you to be able to get into the health profession that you really want and make a difference. And our communities need you as well. So this commission I worked with identified for California, what are the hot and emerging clinical career paths? And by hot and emerging, I mean there's shortages already, and there's going to be an increased demand in the future, and they're going to play an increasingly important role in providing care. And so you can see primary care, like some of the themes here are primary care, behavioral health, and care for older adults, or the three areas that the Health Workforce Commission said were the most important areas of need in California going forward. And to be in primary care, you can be a doctor, and we need more primary care doctors. We need more primary care doctors with the lived experience that many of you bring to the table, and with language skills and cultural knowledge, and with a commitment to serving the community. But you can also be a primary care leader by being an advanced practice nurse, like a nurse practitioner, a clinical nurse specialist, a nurse midwife. And then those career paths are expanding. There's a lot more money in California going into helping support people to become nurse practitioners and clinical nurse specialists in all those areas. And they're getting more practice authority, which is really good, because they play a huge role in caring for underserved populations in our state. And just playing a key role in primary care teams. PAs are also increasing in California, physician assistants. A lot of you could be medical assistants as a path, or on your way to becoming another kind of professional. One of my Health Career Connection alumni graduated from UC Berkeley as an undergrad after coming from a community college as a transfer. She then, before she chose which clinical path she wanted to go down, she worked as a medical assistant at Kaiser, working in the OB area, because she knew she wanted to work with women who were pregnant. And she was trying to decide, did she want to be a doctor? Did she want to be a nurse practitioner? Or did she want to be a nurse midwife? And she did that job for 2 years after graduating from Cal, and then decided that she really wanted to be a nurse practitioner and a nurse midwife. That would be the way for her to really have the impact that she wanted to have. And so being a medical assistant, there's a huge demand for medical assistants. So that's a good way to be able to go. The nurses, I have specialty RNs here, but nursing is in higher demand now. It used to be that it was the OR, the emergency room type of physician, the ICU. Now all nurses are going to be in high demand. And so if that's an area that calls you, please consider nursing. Nurses can be care coordinators, as can social workers, which is really a growing field as well. And then physical therapy, as people are getting older, and people who work with advanced illness care and hospice, and any of these type of professions. So these are paths because you want to go into a career path that's hot and emerging. So these are paths that are some of the highest demand and emerging health career paths on the clinical side in California. Behavioral health in particular is a growing area. There is no health without behavioral health. Fortunately today, we are addressing the stigma that oftentimes comes with many cultures about seeking care for your mental health. And behavioral health is mental health and substance use. And like in my Indian tribe, mental health and substance use are the two biggest issues in our tribe in terms of health issues. We have cardiovascular disease, we have diabetes, which are really significant issues, but the biggest issues are prescription drug and opioid abuse and depression and anxiety and those kind of things. And so we've got to be real about that in terms of seeking care, and we've got to have more people going into these careers. So if any of you are interested in behavioral health, you can be in behavioral health either as a psychologist, you can be a doctor as a psychiatrist, but you can also be in master's degrees types of programs ranging from nurse practitioners and to marriage and family therapists, licensed clinical counselors. There are also roles that you can, and licensed clinical social workers. Huge need for people to become behavioral health social workers. And then there's roles that you can get into just with an undergraduate degree or no degree, like a peer support specialist or a community health worker that work on behavioral health. And then substance use disorder as well. You can get an AA certificate in doing that kind of work. There's a new role that's coming out called the behavioral health coach in California. There's going to be $400 million is going into investing and creating these behavioral health coaching roles in California. So I'm wanting you to be back to my Fairfield upbringing. I want you to know what's possible. And this is what's possible on the clinical side and what some of the high demand careers are going to be. You don't have to be a clinician, although, and you can combine being a clinician with these non-clinical type degrees. And so I'm a public health person. I'm a health management person. We all know that with the pandemic, public health is much more, it's always been really important, but now it's in the spotlight. There's billions of dollars going into the public health workforce, and there's great jobs in public health. You can do well by doing good. You can work on social justice. You can go upstream. Clinical people take care of people when they are sick, when they're injured. Public health is going upstream and preventing people from getting sick and injured and creating the conditions in the community and empowering them so that they don't get sick and don't need clinical care. And there's a lot of clinicians that do both. A lot of people become a doctors, get a master in public health degree, nurses do PAs, pharmacists. And so even if you are going to be a clinician, encouraging you to consider public health. The management side is really important in order to really make change in institutions. We need people in power roles, right? So why not have more people like you that are leading hospitals, community health centers, that are legislators like Dr. Joaquin Arambula from the Central Valley, who is the head of the Senate, the Assembly Health Committee, and has implemented all this legislation for health for all in California, for health equity in California. And so why not you be in a position of power, like that as well? And then community health workers and health navigators. Maybe some of you are already community health workers or health navigators. Increasingly important role. These are people who are the sort of people that are trusted by the community, who know the community, who know the resources, who can help people be healthy, help people navigate care, either on behavioral health or prevention or public health or vaccine distribution. There's hundreds of millions of dollars going into people being community health workers. And so in addition to thinking about like, how do I get an internship to get some experience? You could be a community health worker. You could be a vaccine ambassador. You could be a contact tracer. You could be a case investigator. Like COVID has created more roles that you can get into without an advanced degree now to get that exposure and experience, to get the contact of working with people like community health workers do, that could really help you figure out what you want to do and then get into these different graduate training programs down the road, or pursue that as your path. Social work, we've already talked about. There's also people we're needing big data and analytics out of electronic health records and wearables and our things that we buy. Is all this data now that needs to turn into actionable information to help prevent people from getting sick, or to do research to help to come up with the best treatments. And then you need to look at areas like digital health and health IT, which are going to be the way that care is provided. One of my former UC Berkeley students and Health Career Connection alumni, she is the vice president of digital physical therapy and digital women's health for a company called Hinge Health. And so they're providing all these clinical services, but they're doing it through a digital platform in more innovative ways. And so as you think about your path, you want to think about, where is the industry going? How am I going to fit into it? And even for your internships, you might do internships in these kind of settings where the innovative models of care are being developed and delivered, particularly with digital health and health IT. And particularly those are ways there was a concern about how to get some clinical experience in in the COVID world. One way to do that is through working through digital health kinds of organizations. We had some Health Career Connection interns this past year that worked with a company called Humanest, which Humanest is a digital telehealth mental health company. And they were able to sit in with licensed practitioners, providing mental health services to college student clients, and they were able to sit in on that using telehealth rather than having to be in a facility where there was some COVID, type concern. And so looking at these options, and we also need some of you to become entrepreneurs, to disrupt things yourselves, and to come up with your own solutions. And then consulting is a great path for people coming out of undergrad. When I was in your shoes, I did not know what a consultant was. I didn't know till I got into graduate school. And I found out there's a whole bunch of organizations and people who are health consultants around a lot of different types of issues. Some are clinical, some are non-clinical, some are public health, some are policy. And then people are able to, as undergrads, get jobs as consultants on their way to becoming a doctor, on their way to becoming a clinician, or on their way to becoming a health executive like I am. So I just wanted you to have a glimpse. Those are sort of the hot emerging clinical, behavioral health, and non-clinical career paths. And I'll stop here. I'll just say this. I mentioned this already when I was the co-director of the California Future Health Workforce Commission. This was our model, that our goal was to have California have the future workforce, which is that's you, with the right people in the right places, with the right skills to promote health. So it's not just taking care of people, right? It's promoting health and delivering care in all communities, for all people in California. And you could see the three areas that were the most important professions going forward were primary care and prevention, which is public health, behavioral health, and then healthy aging. A lot of people are overlooking the fact that in California and nationally, the fastest growing segment of the population is the over 85 population and the over 65 population, and that we're having a silver tsunami for the next span of time. And so we need more people to consider going in and working to keep people healthy in their homes, or to keep people to care for them at various life stages. So just going to pause for a second and see if there's any questions here about any of these different professional paths. Because we're going to go into the how you're going to pick which was right for you, and then internships. But any questions about any of these different career paths, what they mean, and anything that would be helpful here? All right, so then I'm going to go on. If you have questions, put them in the chat. We're going to talk now about how do you figure out of all these paths, which is the right one for you, and then how to get the internship. So because of all my experience working with students, I've worked with almost 10,000 students now over the years, through Berkeley, through Health Career Connection, Harvard, Chico, other places. I finally decided to write a book. I released it right during the pandemic, not the easiest time, but it's called You Don't Have to Be a Doctor. Discover, Achieve, and Enjoy Your Authentic Health Career. We're going to have a session in November where we'll talk more about that. But it's a very practical book. It's not an academic book. There's lots of practical exercises. It's all about how you discover and achieve the health career that best suits you, your authentic health career. The title, You Don't Have to Be a Doctor, is just a catchy title. It doesn't discourage anybody from being a doctor. In fact, it encourages you to be a doctor if it's the right calling for you, if it's your true authentic health career path. I work with lots of students, though, who say the title is a relief to them because they felt the pressure to be a doctor from their family, from their friends, from themselves, when they didn't really want to be one. And they like the fact that there's a lot of other health career options. So you'll be best served, as will the community, if you pick the option that's the right one for you. And if you go through this book and other things, and you're going to be a doctor, which many, many, many of you will, and I'm really excited about that. We need you. Please be one. That's fantastic. You just are making a more well-informed, a deep choice. If you choose not to be a doctor, there's so many other things we just saw that you can pursue. So available on Amazon for the price of going to a movie. Definitely know that it will be helpful to you. And so I wrote the book because I want you to become more clear now in your college age, or in your recent graduate, or as a post-bac, what is the right path for you? Because if you're clear who you are and what you want, you'll be better able to make a choice the first time around. That's my goal. I want you to, this is my public health prevention upstream, causing you from making the health career choice that won't serve you. One of my Health Career Connection alums, her brother went through medical school, came out with $200,000 of debt, and decided he wanted to be a brewmaster. This was the University of Chicago Medical School, one of the top ones in the country, instead of being a doctor. So we want to prevent that from happening to you and others. Your authentic health career path Also, you'll be a happier person if you pursue your authentic health career. So your authentic path is the one that best suits you. There's only one of you in the universe. And I want your authentic path is the one that suits you, your unique talents, your passions, your goals, your lived experience. You have so much that you bring to being in the health field. We want you to have the life and the impact that you want to have. Steve Jobs, who's had a little bit of success, was the founder and CEO of Apple. This was from his Stanford commencement speech. He said, "It's your life. Don't waste it living someone else's life. Your time is limited." He died when he was only 57 years old, unfortunately. Have the courage and heart to follow your heart and intuition. They know what you really want to become. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do is as we go through this next section, then we're going to get real practical about internships. Tap into what is your true authentic health career direction based on your heart, your intuition, and based on what we saw about what those hot and emerging health career paths are. That's your head part of it. So how do you do this? What I've found is, and I've done this with myself and thousands of other students, that if you can find the alignment between what health and employers need and what the opportunities are, that's why we just spent time talking about what are the hot and emerging health career paths. That's what I didn't get as a growing up kid in Fairfield. You really want to know what's possible. And that's where internships come in. Internships and talks like this and conferences and shadowing are ways for you to get exposed to what are the needs and what are people going to get paid for in the health field, going forward. And then once you know that, you know what's possible, how does that align with you? You're the bottom of the triangle. Your unique talents, passions, values, and goals. What you're good at and enjoy doing. And I don't mean just what you're good at, but what you enjoy doing, what you would do for free if you could, but you're not going to do it for free because you're going to get paid really well because you're going to be good at it. And there's going to be a need and it's going to be aligned with who you really are. But I would do what I do today. I would do it for free and because it's so much aligned. I'm so energized every single day, going in and coming out of the day. And so my goal for you is to find that health profession. And many of you are well on your way now. That same kind of thing that you're going to every day be really excited about doing. And then the times when it's tough in medical school and residency, when you're like, why am I doing this? This is really hard. Oh my gosh. You're going to be able to say, you know what? I know why I'm doing this because this is who I am. This is what I value, what I'm good at. This is what's needed. I know. And because then you can have the things in the middle of the triangle here, your purpose, your fulfilling work, the financial rewards will come, even if it's something that on the surface may not make as much money as something else. If you put your heart and soul and hard work into it, if it's who you really are, your authentic health career, you'll be able to do it. And I know because I've seen lots of people who do it. And if not you might have a partner who allows you to, the money they make allows them to be able to support you to do what you want to do. Now, it's not easy to find this alignment. Sometimes you're just surviving. Sometimes you're just searching. And sometimes when it all comes together, you're at the being stage of it. And it's a process, right? Health careers are changing. The environment is changing. You're changing. So this is a way just to think about how to achieve the authentic health career. And, I'm going to encourage you to really be bold in thinking about that because when you do, mighty forces will come to your aid to have you be able to do what you really want to be able to do. I got this quote from a friend of mine who's succeeded in selling 3 companies. He's also survived 3 cancers. And so I trust in this, and wherever you are, it's exactly where you're supposed to be. So whether you're like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do, let's get on to the internships, or whether you are, you want to know more, you're really more confused than ever. My best breakthroughs came after I was more confused. So if you're more confused, it just means everything hasn't all gelled yet, but it will. So I'm going to just share with last thing before we talk internships. This is my model. My book has 9 chapters. Each one of these things is a chapter. These are my steps to you getting your authentic health career. And the first is to get exposure to what's possible. That's the part I didn't get when I was a kid in Fairfield. That's what we just did in terms of talking about what the hot and emerging careers are. But your internships and shadowing and informational interviews are ways for you to be able to get even more exposure. And then you've got to do the work of the bottom of the triangle, self-assessment and discovery. What are my values? What are my passions, my goals? What am I good at and enjoy? What's my why for wanting to be a doctor? You're going to have to write about your why you want to be a doctor on your your statement. You're going to have to talk about why you want to be a doctor in your interviews. You're going to have to convince them in your authentic voice that it's who you are and what you want to do. So you might as well do that work now before you choose. And then it's getting practical experience to know what you really want to do or what you don't want to do, and building your track record to be able to get there. And then it's about pursuing the direction that you know that you really want to do. Notice that going for your educational preparation comes after you've gotten exposure, experience, you've chosen your direction that you want to go in, you've done that work about, this is your graduate education, about who you are and what you really want. And then it's not enough to have a good education. You've got to package yourself with LinkedIn, with cover letters, resumes, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here, so that you can be competitive to get what you want. And then it's about getting a network. It's either network or not work. So then you have to have a network that'll be supportive of you going forward. And a lot of the best internships are going to come from alumni from your school, from faculty from your school, from someone like Jubin, who's really well connected, from peers who have gone on and they've done an internship. Maybe the people in Chicago's in health education, your club at school, some people did an internship at one place and they're referring you to that place. So networking is really important to get to an internship and getting a job. And then you've got to believe in yourself that your path is really the one that's best for you. Then when you tell your parents that, okay, I know I want to be a surgeon, I want to go to medical school, and they're like, oh my gosh, think about how much debt that's going to bring for us. Or when you say, I don't want to be a doctor, I want to go into public health instead, that takes a lot of belief and courage. And finally, this is, it's okay. So you can go down one path and make some adjustments. You may make some mistakes, or you may choose, like I chose to be a health executive for 20 years, and then I shifted to go be a professor, an associate dean, instead. And so anyway, this framework is one you can diagnose for yourself to say, do I need more exposure? Do I need more experience? Do I need a better packaging? Do I need to strengthen my network? What do I need to strengthen in order to go forward? And I know if you can follow this path, because I've done this myself 3 or 4 times and with thousands of students, you can achieve your authentic health career. And some people say, well, this is a lot of structure and I just go with the flow. But there's a saying that opportunity is where luck and preparation meet. This is the preparation part. So these are the ways that you can pursue what's best for you in terms of your career path. We're now going to go into internships and how to be able to secure them. And the first thing is to put yourself in the flow of people and opportunities. And by doing that, one way to get an internship, there's internships that you can apply for, right? That are on the web. There's internships that I'm going to tell you about, great internship programs. But some of the best internships or shadowing opportunities that you might get come from something called an informational interview. An informational interview is you using the magic words. I'm a student at Los Medanos College. I'm a pre-med student. I'd like to talk to you about, what you do. This is reaching out to professionals. This is reaching out to faculty members, alumni of your schools, to ask them, can I have an informational interview? Which means you're not going there to try to ask for a job or an internship. You're going to get information to help inform your career path. It might lead to being able to get an internship, or often it does, or a shadowing experience, because you do an informational interview with someone, with a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a PA or something like that. And they'll say, yeah, wow, boy, I really enjoy talking with you. How else can I be helpful? And you could say, well, gosh, is there a way that I could come and shadow you at some point, even if it's on Zoom? I don't have to come and be in your facility, but could I shadow you at some time down the road? So an informational interview is something that you can do. It just takes you to reach out to people and ask for the informational interviews. And then from that, either they might have opportunities for internships or shadowing, or they would know other people who do. They might be able to say, oh, well, I don't have anything right now, but my friend who's in this community health center does. You might reach out to do them. When I ask people how they got their jobs, a lot of times, well, I got my job through doing 25 informational interviews. I got it from doing 50 informational interviews. So making time on top of your school to do an informational interview and internships, which we'll talk about, is important. And being able to use mentors. Another way to get an internship besides the ones that are posted are asking your faculty, asking your mentors about internship opportunities that they know about, or people that you can talk to in order to get internships. Often that's how people, when I was at UC Berkeley, a faculty member at Berkeley, I would refer students all the time to people in the industry for informational interviews that would then lead to internship opportunities. And then being able to look at your web-based strategies. Using LinkedIn is really important. Everybody should have a good LinkedIn profile, and everybody should use LinkedIn. There's a way to look up the number of the people from Santa Monica College or Cal State University, San Bernardino. I'm looking at who's here in the audience from your school that are working at certain kinds of companies. You could reach out to them if you want to work at a certain community health center or hospital or health plan or Google or something like that. Put in from your school on the Google page, see who works there, or being able to, anyway, utilizing LinkedIn as a way to connect with people, and then being able to see if you can do informational interviews and get internships. So that's the first thing, is you can't do it and great job for being here today. You're putting yourself in the flow of people and opportunities. So other ways to get some exposure and experience are, which is those first couple things in my framework. We talked about informational interviews. Shadowing is more difficult in this environment. I think it is harder given the constraints of institutions and given how busy practitioners are these days. I would try to go through shadowing by either volunteering at a facility and building a relationship with them when you volunteer. And then when you're there, being able to say, oh, is there a possibility that I could shadow someone, while I'm here? And then having known people, they might be able to connect you to folks, or to go through faculty members in your school, to go through colleagues. If someone comes to speak at your, like I'm coming to speak to you today, I don't have clinical shadowing, but if someone comes to speak in your program, being able to follow them out the door, or to get their email and follow up with them and say, gosh, I really enjoyed your talk. I'd like to do an informational interview with you. Is there a way I can also potentially do some shadowing with you or somebody else, that you're working with? Being able to look at some of the health profession schools, like the medical schools or the nursing schools in your area, seeing if they have any clinical shadowing days. Looking at organizations, there's an organization called Me Mentor that is a great organization out there that you can get involved with to get group mentorship. They have conferences, they have alumni you can connect with. Seeing if through that organization they have shadowing opportunities. But a lot of it is going to come from your own initiative, working through your networks. That's why the network is important. Working through people that to try to get to connect to somebody who is more likely to give you a shadowing opportunity than they are just if you send a cold email to somebody or to an organization. So I'm encouraging you to go through the networking, the informational interview route, to do that. Another way to do this is through conferences. Jubin is the master of the conferences. He initiated the UC Davis Student Health Conference, and which is the largest pre-health conference in the country. Going to that conference, meeting practitioners that are speaking there, going up to them afterwards. I enjoyed your presentation. Can I do an informational interview with you? Is there any way I might be able to shadow you, or come to visit your facility, in some way? Utilizing your class projects strategically. Many of you are going to have projects in your class. When I was a first-year student at UC Berkeley, I did a class project on an urgent care center at a hospital serving the underserved. And by doing that class project, I got to know the emergency room doctors who were running the urgent care center, and I got to shadow them and spend time, working with them. And they had an internship at that organization. And since I'd done that class project for them, I got the internship. This is putting yourself in the flow of people and opportunities. And that internship led to me getting a job in that community. And I worked in that medical community for 14 years afterwards. So that class project can be strategic too. So open your lens to different ways you want to put yourself in the flow of people and opportunities by getting your foot in the door in these organizations through the different kinds of things that you have as a student. Student clubs are another good example. When I was at Chico, I was the president of the Health Professions Club. And so guess what that meant? I got to invite all the guest speakers. Our clubs would have guest speakers every couple of weeks. I would invite them. I would get to talk to them before and after their presentation, I would do informational interviews with them, which would then lead to, I got an internship at a local hospital there because the CEO came to talk at our club. I followed up with him afterwards, and he said, well, I don't have an internship with me, but why don't you intern with this planner who we have? And so by virtue of having this person come to speak, I was able to get a relationship that led to me getting an internship from that community. So your student clubs are really important. Plus, you can put on health fairs, you can put on networking nights. Everybody wants to come and support students. So encourage you to be part of student health clubs. Host a networking night, invite a bunch of clinical professionals, host a conference. At Cal, we had the Minorities in Health Conference put on by all the student clubs. They would invite the Surgeon General of California to come speak. She did. And they got to know her and they followed up with her. So I'm trying to encourage you to think of a lot of ways beyond just applying for internships as a way to be able to get them and as a way to build your network. And some places like Me Mentor have group interviews. There's also just getting work experience. You don't have to shadow necessarily. You can use your work study. If you have work study, do it in the health center on campus at your school. Do get a work study job there. You'll get to see how the clinical professionals work. You get to build relationships, do something with them, or do it in a community organization. Community organizations have work study too. Maybe you can get a job at a community health center or a public health department or something like that. And then there's getting internships. So there's a lot of ways to get exposure and experience. You just have to put yourself in the flow of people and opportunity, put yourself out there to do it. So let's talk internships. One of the different types of internships, one of the things you have to think about is, do you want full-time or part-time? Are you doing this during the summer where you can do full-time, or maybe your winter break? Or are you doing this during the academic year? Do you already have a job and you can only do a part-time internship of some kind during the academic year? You can't give up your full-time summer experience because you got to work. You don't want to lose that job, but there could be some of those full-time summer experiences that could be life-changing, career-launching like mine, that would be worth it to give up your job in order to have that kind of a full summer exposure and experience and mentorship opportunity. You need to be open to doing internships in all different ways now, virtual, hybrid, or in person. And then I encourage you to broaden, not just be laser focused on clinical types of internships, because clinical ones are really important. And if you can get those, that's fantastic. And realize that as in your training to be a doctor, to be a nurse, to be a PA, to be an NP, you're going to do a lot of clinical work, right? And so medical schools and clinical programs, they also like people who've done work in the community on public health issues. In some ways, it differentiates you a little bit that you've got this community health experience. You also still have to, meet the requirements of the programs academically and other ways. But by having experience in community health or public health, and guess what? Doctors and nurses work in those settings too, and you get to know them and they get to mentor you. Or you can work like I did in health management or policy. I did a project as a health management person working in the cardiac cath lab. I was looking at not taking care of patients, but I was looking at how they were able to, how much it cost to provide a procedure. And so by coming up with the cost, I had to talk to the doctors and the nurses and the people who ran the cath lab. I had to learn about how the process worked. I had to see the procedures being done. So there's a way that you can work on policy and management to see quality improvement, to see patient satisfaction. And those are all things working with clinicians and working on patient care. They're just not directly giving patient care. You can be a scribe and you can be in the room. Like being a scribe is something I encourage you to do for work experience too, where you can be in the room with doctors and nurses and be able to get internships. Be able to really see if you want to do that or not and build your track record. But other than that, you can get a lot of exposure and experience that's useful to you that isn't necessarily clinical. And you could do advocacy work too. If there's health issues you care about, you can do advocacy work, in your community. So I encourage you to think about narrowly, how do I get clinical internships, but how do I broadly think of other types of ways, particularly if clinical is hard right now, which it is. And there's a lot of competition for clinical internships. Even people in medical school now, even people in residency, there's not enough clinical internships and clinical rotations for them. So maybe thinking, okay, if it's really hard right now, let me do some of these other things, which will lead me to meeting doctors and nurses and health professionals, which will be helpful to me anyway, and will also give me other types of experience and exposure to figure out what I want to do and to make the case to be able to do it. So there's some exciting developments in California on the internship front. There's something called the California Medicine Scholars Program, which got funded for millions of dollars by the state of California and the California Endowment. At UC San Diego, at UCSF Fresno, UC Riverside, UC Davis, some of you are going to these schools. This is a new program, and it's focused on community college students, having community college students that can become doctors. The California Medicine Scholars Program is all about having community college students have a more clear pathway and more support to being able to become doctors. And so you might look to see, these are just being launched this right now, look to see what's happening at these UC schools around supporting community college students. I'm going to tell you, they're going to have internships. They're going to have clinical shadowing opportunities. They're going to have mentorship. They're going to have a lot of programs to support students to be able to be in those pathways. And by the way, those schools, UC San Diego has a great and amazing program that they've had for many years to help students from community college be able to become doctors. They have summer programs, they have mentorship, they have MCAT prep. UC Riverside has Future Physician Leaders program, which is supporting students from Riverside in the community to become physician leaders. And they have other types of programs, medical scholars programs. UC Davis has the PreMedCC program. So looking at those schools anyway, UCSF Fresno has the Doctors Academy. And so these are schools that you want to look at anyway to see what kind of programs that they have in terms of internships. But now this California Medicine Scholars should be taking things to another level. Earlier this week, $40 million was allocated to multiple campuses in California, UC Irvine, Cal State Dominguez Hills, UC San Diego, Fresno State. Lots of money got put out to CSUs and UCs primarily, and Me Mentor and others to create health career opportunities for students. Millions of dollars got allocated for these places to offer paid internships through their school in partnership with other organizations. So I'm going to encourage you to look to see who the awardees, if you go to the website called HCI, Office of Healthcare Access and Information, you can see who the awardees are of those millions of dollars. They're going to be developing programs on their campuses in the next year, and it's 5 years of funding for folks like you to pursue health careers. So look at those campuses. Some of them you may be going to, others you may be transferring to. They're going to have a lot of opportunity coming up. There's hundreds of millions going to behavioral health workforce now. There's something called the Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative in California, where they're going to be creating more opportunities for folks to go into behavioral health. There's a new behavioral health coaching program. And there's peer support specialists, which are people who have lived experience. You can become a peer support specialist and get certified and trained in that area as well, in addition to being a community health worker that I mentioned earlier. So these are things that right now, more than ever, there's resources in going into creating opportunities for you to be able to go forward. And then within internship programs, there are one I want to highlight to you in particular. There's some public health ones called the CUPS programs through CDC, Center for Disease Control, that have lots of money going into these programs. One that's just particularly designed for freshmen and sophomores, those of you in that situation, is something called the Summer Health Professions Education Program, SHPEP. These programs are specifically designed for freshmen and sophomore to be able to get prepared to go into medical school or other clinical paths. There are programs at Western University down in the Inland Empire, SHPEP programs, and there's one at UCLA, I believe as well. And there's 12 others in the country that you can apply for. And so these are those of you wanting a clinical focused internship program with great support and track record, the Summer Health Professions Education Program. They're through the American Association of Medical Colleges, AAMC. American Association of Medical Colleges is where those internships are You'll find all the summer health professions education programs located there. And by the way, that's a great website, AAMC.org, to find other internships and other kinds of conferences for pre-med students and all kinds of resources about how to pay for medical school, how to write your statement of purpose, how to interview. Like that's the AAMC has all those kind of resources. I already mentioned the UC Davis program. UCSF, I'm not sure how to access it, but UCSF Fresno, as well as UCSF in San Francisco, has a pre-med summer program where I know I've been speaking in that program the last couple of years. They have 20 plus students per year. The program is really designed to prepare you for getting into medical school. You work on your essays, your interviews, your MCAT prep, like mentorship, all those kinds of things. So that's a really good program to be able to look at. Kaiser Permanente has something called KP Launch, which is a great program for people to get paid internships working at Kaiser, getting paid really well. So these are all specific internship programs. I'm now going to talk about Health Career Connection, which is the one that I founded and run to this day. Let me plug in my laptop here first before it goes out of battery.
Mr. Oxendine, you're talking about the Aspire program?
Yeah, the one for the UCSF ones?
Yeah.
I believe
put the
so.
link in the
Yes. That's correct. Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about Health Career Connection. So there's a lot of options right now. It may seem really hard. It isn't necessarily, you're going to have to do some digging and outreach and those kind of things, but it will be, there's a lot of different programs out there that you can pursue. Oh, good, Jubin, you're putting them in the chat. That's great. Okay. All right. So HCC is the program that I founded and run. We're all about inspiring and empowering the next generation of diverse health leaders and professionals. That's where you come in. HCC is something that we have for 32 years. We have inspired and empowered undergraduate students that include community college, that include 4-year, and we do support people who have graduated and are seeking experience, as well as post-bac students. We provide paid summer internships. We've helped 4,600 students now become doctors, public health leaders, mental health leaders, and others. You can watch our video that will really, we'll share the slides that will show you more about us. So what we do is we particularly work with students that are from historically underrepresented backgrounds, also people who are first in their family, people who are DACA recipients, and others, to be able to get hands-on exposure, experience, mentorship, networking, all those things on my 9-step model. Those are all things that we do in HCC. Our angle, as I mentioned, we don't provide clinical experiences. We don't provide research experiences. I should have said earlier that research experiences, I would look at your undergraduate campuses for that, because more of the undergraduate campuses, and maybe the health profession schools as well. I should have mentioned that Stanford has a really good program for community college students that want to go into medicine. They have a summer undergraduate research program at Stanford School of Medicine. That is an excellent program. And Marcella Anthony is the person there you might reach out to about that program. It's been around for many years. You get great research experience as well as professional development and networking. And so that's an excellent program. So HCC doesn't do clinical. We don't do research, but we have you, as I mentioned, you work on health issues. You still work on health. You still work with doctors and nurses and PAs and NPs and all those folks. Many of our internships are at medical schools. We have internships at UC Davis, at UCSF, at UCLA. Some of them are actually with the medical school programs themselves, like the UCLA Prime program hosts 4 or 5 HCC interns every year. So the Kaiser Permanente School of Medicine hosts HCC interns every year. So you're getting to know people that are at the medical schools. You're getting mentored by them. You're working on projects for them. You're just not working on clinical specific types of things. We have, other than with behavioral health, we do have more internships that are somewhat more clinical. And we have funding from Blue Shield Health Plan and others to support behavioral health internships and get paid well to do that. We also have biopharma internships now for those of you that want to get that kind of exposure and experience. And we're all about increasing the diversity and connecting you. Part of the Health Career Connection is connecting you to your authentic health career, but also connecting you to employers, to graduate schools who are seeking to increase their excellence, seeking to increase their diversity, seeking to increase their equity, those kinds of things. And it's really about getting you to be leaders. HCC is about promoting people to be leaders in addition to health professionals. So if you want to be a leader and you want to be somebody who transforms health and health equity in your communities, that's what we're looking for. We've done this for 32 years. Folks are very excited about their HCC experiences, and 65 to 70% of our alumni get a job or extend their internship. So another way to get an internship is to extend the one that you have. So getting your foot in the door with an HCC internship or another type of program internship, then once you're in the system, people will see how great you are. They'll say, we can't let this person get away, and they'll support you to stay on in their organization, either as an employee. So this is the way to get experience after undergrad, to get a job after undergrad, is to get an internship, which could lead to a job, which can then make the case for you to get into graduate school, to have the resume that you need and a statement of purpose, to have people write letters of recommendation for you. So the other benefit of an internship like this is you have influential people that write letters for you in addition to your faculty members to get your internship. So our internship is, as I mentioned, is for undergrads. I will say that because of the nature of our program, we do have more of our interns are people who are they're either going between their sophomore and junior year, junior and senior year, or people who are graduating, because our internships are such that they want people who've had more coursework and they've had more skills that they've developed, some experience, and they're kind of a little bit more along professionally to help navigate these organizations. But we do have people who are freshmen, that are coming out of their freshman year, but just realizing that it often is for people who are a little further along. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. I encourage everyone to apply, put your best foot forward, and it's a 10-week internship. It's full-time. It could be virtual or hybrid or in person, and you get paid a reasonably good stipend. Some companies actually host and employ the interns themselves and pay even more than that. So you get to get hands-on exposure, experience, mentorship, and you get paid in order to be able to do it, which is great. Our model
Mr. Oxendine,
yes,
somebody had a question. What are the percentages of admission for people that apply? And I would just add this, is that there's 100% chance that if you don't apply, you won't get in. That's 100% chance. That's the only statistic that I want to let them know, that if you don't apply, you have 100% chance of not getting in.
And that Jubin is the main statistic to focus on. We don't do percentages with HCC. We're looking for fit. So we are looking for people who are a fit. We look at holistically at you as a person. We don't look at, we do look at your GPA, but we're not a GPA program. We look at your statement of purpose. We look at you, where you've come from, like who you are. And you got to apply. That's the main thing. Jubin is absolutely right. And we work hard every year to place as many students as possible. And the more you can tell your story in a compelling way, what you want to go do, where you want to go, we'll talk about how to do that in a minute. The more we'll work hard to find a placement for you. And we have internships, I'll show you, all throughout the state and around the country. So our internships are in hospitals, in medical groups, in health plans. They're in local health departments, community-based organizations, and advocacy. We want people to advocate on behalf of their communities. They're in biopharma, biotech firms. And our model is that we pair you with somebody who's a preceptor, who is the main point person in the organization, and they and others will mentor you. You'll work under them on projects and on things in the community. Many of our opportunities work with community as well. So that's what in terms of the type of internships that we have. We do this all over the country. Most of our internships are in California. You can see in California, we have internships ranging from Sacramento to Salinas, and from Santa Barbara to San Diego. We have a program in the Central Valley, which is the 8 Central Valley counties, but largely Fresno, Merced, Stockton areas, Modesto. And then we have program in the Coachella Valley as well. In the Coachella Valley, we definitely have people from College of the Desert, some of the community colleges in the area that are prominent members of that program, and as we do throughout our other areas as well. And then we're trying to start up a Central Coast program this year, working in the San Luis Obispo to Santa Maria, Ventura, those areas as well. So the good news is, so we place you. We don't provide housing, but we provide this educational stipend. But we try to get people who are from a certain community, or they're going to college there, to be able to stay there. Or if you want to have an experience of trying, we have HCC interns from California who do 8 internships in Boston and New York and other types of places as well. And so it's a great way to get exposure, experience, and networking. We partner with these different graduate school partners. So as I mentioned, Stanford School of Medicine that has their summer program, they come in and they talk in our summer program. The UCSF School of Medicine, they come in, they come and talk to the HCC students about what they're looking for in terms of medical students. And we have a medical careers coalition within HCC of our alumni. That alumni who are in medical school or are residents or are doctors, they come and talk about how they got there. They talk about tips on getting in. They offer shadowing and those kinds of things. So by being an HCC, you put yourself in a network of professionals who want to be supportive to you. And we have public health schools as well as medical schools. And we have dozens of HCC alums at all these different places. Some of them here host our students as well. And then our framework with HCC is you get hands-on experience because we have a very structured program where you do projects, you do deliverables. We have you do an internship plan about what you want to get out of your experience, and includes informational interviews. It includes professional development, develop specific skills. It includes mentorship from HCC staff as well as people coming in and the people in your organization. You're in a cohort. This is a cohort model with other students in your region. So you get to meet students from all other schools who are passionate about health like you are. And our students, often BIPOC students, first generation students. So they have similar backgrounds and build a really strong bond. And then we have a comprehensive set of professional development activities on career planning, on advocacy, on health equity, on leadership, cultural competency, those kind of things. And we help people get jobs, as I mentioned. In terms of our health equity, we have a health equity scholars program in addition to our internship program that you can apply for. This is a part-time program. It's 20 hours a week. So those of you who have summer school or are working in the field, this is it's a 20-hour week program. You get a stipend. It's an 8-week program instead of 10. You still get to work with organizations, but not as an intern. You work on team consulting projects around health equity, around diversity, racial justice, those kinds of things. And then we have this complete leadership career development and a lot of in-depth work around health equity and racial justice and those kind of things. So if you don't want to do an internship or you can't do it full time, this is another way to be able to do it, but it's a virtual program. You have to be up for that. So you can apply to either internships or the Health Equity Scholars Program when you apply. And you can apply to whichever regions that you want. You can apply to more than, usually we encourage you to apply to maybe reach any 2 or 3 regions that you could ultimately do, or only one, if that's what you're interested in. So these are the HCC programs. As I mentioned, we also have pharma and biotech internships for those of you who have biology backgrounds or lab type of skills or want to explore those areas. And you can see the range of types of internships. Some are lab-based, but some are more on the business side or the data analytics side or human resources, something like that. So biopharma is a growing area. So these are not clinical internships, but they could be lab-based internships that you could be able to pursue. These are the type of skills that people who are going into our biopharma placements. These are different kind of skills that many of you have experience with from your undergraduate research or your undergraduate coursework. But you don't have to have all these skills in order to be able to get a biopharma internship. It would be helpful for some of them, but others you can be exploring. And so we also have behavioral health internships, as I mentioned, both in mental health and in substance use. We also have training in HCC. You get mental health first aid certification if you're interested. We have trauma related trainings. We have grief related trainings, stress trainings, and all kinds of other support. We're looking for people who want to go explore behavioral health as a career path, or if they want to be a management or policy person and work in behavioral health, which is really important as well. These are some of the organizations that we partner with. To be eligible for HCC, you can be a community college student, 4-year student, or recently graduated. You have to be within 3 years of school. You can be a post-grac student as well. We're not having graduate students at this point, nor high school students. Our application is going to be available on the 10th of October, and it'll be due on December the 5th. But the earlier you apply, the better, just for helping you get into the queue more quickly. And then we do our interviews in January with HCC staff. And then we send you out to the host organizations. The people who host the interns actually have to, you get to interview with different host organizations to see what's a good fit for you and what they have to offer. And they get to interview you to see if you're a good fit for them. And it's a summer program, as I mentioned. We'll be having some webinars that I'll let Jubin know about. He can promote through your network about learning more about HCC coming up. And then we're going to talk about how to apply, and then we'll get to your questions. So for HCC, there is an online application. It takes a little bit of time, but it should not be, you should not do it because I think it's going to take too long, because the longest part of it is the statement of purpose, which you can write on your own time. Then you can cut and paste, you can upload it, into our system. Otherwise, it's asking a lot of demographic information. It's asking like which courses have you taken that are relevant to health applications. We ask you to submit your resume or a CV. A lot of it is asking you about your internship preferences. Like, do you want to work in a hospital? Do you want to work in a health plan? Do you want to work on a certain type of skill? That kind of thing. So a lot of it's just giving us information to help find out if we can offer you the kind of opportunity that you want. So the statement of purpose is the most important part. A statement of purpose is, why are you applying to Health Career Connection? How does it relate to your career goals? What would you like to be able to get out of it? And so what I like on the statement of purpose, this is where you should spend the most time, is to be able to, in a page or maybe a page and a half, be able to write about where you're from. The way I usually do, there's not a formula, but often what makes a good statement of purpose is, where are you from? What are there some things that influenced your health career direction? What are you doing now? So like, okay, I'm from Fairfield. My Native American tribe experience helped influence me to want to be a health professional. And I'm a student at Chico State in the community services program. And then what is your career direction? I'm pursuing healthcare management as my career path because of these reasons. And then why do you want the HCC experience? Well, I'm applying to HCC because, I want to get more exposure working in hospitals, because that's where I think I want to work. I'd love to work in a hospital in an underserved community, because that's my goal and my passion. I want to develop some skills, in management and data analysis and in cultural, in health equity. And I'm really interested in gaining more leadership and professional development to help me in my path, something like that. But it should be well written. This is an example of your writing. It's not like, hey, I'm interested in HCC, my resume is attached. This is taking the time, and this is good for you anyway. The reason we have you do a statement of purpose, to be honest with you, is so that you can practice doing it this is practice for graduate school, because in your health professions training programs, you have to write a statement of purpose. So this is getting you some practice doing it now. It's not because we want to weed you out. It's not because we want to make it really hard for you to apply. We want you to practice, and we want to actually, and we think you can articulate in writing a little bit about your story. We want to see your story. We want to know who you are, what challenges you've overcome, where where you want to go, what you're passionate about, what you'd like to get out of the internship. The key thing is to follow the prompts that we have, follow the prompts on what we're looking for. And then you can write, don't just write without looking at the questions. Follow the prompts. That's not only true for HCC, but any internship application, any graduate school application or health profession school application. And then it's okay to write it and get people to give you some feedback ahead of time. Have people like a faculty member look at it, have a peer that knows you well, somebody who's been an HCC intern, like have other people look at it and highlight you want to have this be your best foot forward. So that's
can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
So this is something I want to add is that Mr. Oxendine, basically, when he was developing this and the application process, it's pretty much a replication for graduate school. He was for years at public health at Berkeley. And most of these applications are pretty much the same, but they basically wanted to replicate that so you have practice doing this. So when you're applying to medical school, graduate school, public school, that you've had the practice, that you've done it before. It's kind of like saying, if I want to go start running a marathon, I don't show up the first day at the San Francisco Marathon and decide to run those hills. I have to first start maybe the first mile or do a couple of speed work, do different, So when you're training for a marathon, this is kind of the same idea, is that, and setting these applications up requires a lot of work. Reading them and going through them requires a lot of work. So they're not doing it because it's fun for them or anything like that. There's a purpose behind it.
Yeah. And we want to hear your story, and we want to have you have a chance to hear rather than we could just look at your resume, but we know your resume doesn't tell your story, right? We want you to have the chance to tell your story, in the way that you really want to do it. So spend time on that. And then the resume is an important, the resume, I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry. The resume is an important part of this as well. Sometimes it gets stuck here. Give me 1 second. There we go. For resume, we're looking at a 1-page resume. It's okay if you have a little more than a page, but this is also practice too, because guess what? Employers really want you, particularly at your stage of career, to have a 1-page resume as well. I know you guys have lots of volunteering stuff. You've got good stuff, lab things on campuses and other things, but practice having a 1-page resume. You can go over if you need to, but this is practice for jobs in grad school too. We want you to include your relevant experience in reverse chronological order. So we want you to start with what you're doing now, like what your current thing. And I think you should put your education first, because for many of you, unless you've got a lot of work experience, which I know some folks in community college do, put your education first. List your health GPA if you have, or a major GPA if it's a strong one, for you. And then reverse chronological order, what skills and experiences that you have. And work experience is important too, not just health work experience, and things like customer service experience, working in retail, working in restaurants and fast food and those things. Those are valuable. It shows that you have worked. It shows you're responsible. It shows that you have worked with customers and the public. We know you get good skills from those kind of things, but include health experience as well as other type of work experience that you have. Put down any kind of particular skills that you have around Microsoft Excel or any kind of those lists of things that we showed you for biopharma skills. Definitely include your language skills if you're bilingual, or you're proficient in another language, both writing or verbal. Put that in. That's a big strength that we have. And we'll send these slides. There's some resources at Berkeley and Michigan that you can look at. But what makes a good resume? Have it in a format that is easy to read and that's not a distraction. Like my daughter gave me her resume, it had red font and all. I'm like, no, not red font. You want to have more, maybe if you're applying for a creative kind of position or something, you could do that, but have it be pretty easy for the reader. And people kind of read the top, and then they kind of read from right to left. And you also want to have bullet points for the things that you want to have stand out about you. Have somebody else look at your resume, as well. So resume is important, along with your statement of purpose. But these are things, the resume is something you need for other things too. And then the rest of it that we have is more just information, again, about like what you want to get out of your experience, those kind of things. So as I mentioned, the application will be available on the 10th of October. You'll come to our website. We'll have these informational webinars that you can do. You'll submit your application, and then we'll go through the process with you. You can contact these people, info@healthcareers.org. Look at our website for more information. The website's not up to date yet with all the current information for this cycle, but the info@healthcareers.org will be helpful. You can network with me. I'm at Oxendine at berkeley.edu. I'd be happy to be helpful to you about this or your authentic health career in any way. And then I just want to end here with a couple of, these are people that were in health career correction interns about, this is probably about 12 years ago now. And you can see they're all smiling here. But in this picture are people who, multiple doctors, multiple nurse practitioners, multiple public health professionals, Harvard Business School graduates, and others. We have a lot more people now. This was a small program. Now we have hundreds more people. This was our small Northern California program. But the reason I'm showing this is because you're going to be there. I mean, a lot of you are going to be in HCC and go on like they did to be professionals. If you go confidently in the direction of your dreams, you're going to be successful. And just ending here. So let's see. Oh, come on. Help me out here. I'm sorry, it's stuck. So I'm going to show you. This is Evita Limon Rocha. She is a physician who also has her MPH. She's from the Inland Empire. And she was an HCC intern in the Inland Empire at an advocacy organization. So even though she wanted to be a physician, she worked at an advocacy organization in the community. She went on to get her MD and MPH. She was the resident of the year for the National Hispanic Medical Association. Now she's a doctor in the Inland Empire, child and adolescent psychiatrist. And guess what? She's on the board of the organization where she did her HCC internship. These are some colleagues here that got their master's in public health at Berkeley with me and master in public policy. Brittany Giles, the person who's the furthest away from me, she is now the director of health equity for the de Beaumont Foundation, a large public health foundation in the country. And so I'm showing these pictures because these folks were exactly where you are. They were in your shoes not that long ago. And now here they are leading their authentic health career just like you will. So I know that was a lot of information, but I hope it was helpful today. I will look at the chat for some quick questions to see what you have.
This is a question somebody had was,
okay.
I'm a first year community college student. Would I still be able to apply to HCC, or do I need to be at least 3 years?
I would say that you can apply. We have people who are first years after their first year that apply to HCC. I think you would be in a if you don't get accepted the first time, it's not a personal reflection on you. It just may be that we didn't have internships in the place you wanted or that are a good fit for you. And please reapply. I would say that you're better off applying between your second and third year, like after you finish your second year, and between your junior and senior year, or people who've graduated or post-bac, than after your first. I think the probability is less after your first year, but we have tons of people who've only done their first year. So back to Jubin's point, you're 100% not going to get it if you don't apply. So this way, if you're interested and you apply, some of the best interns have been folks after their first year. But just realize that if you don't get it, it's probably because you need a little bit more experience, and please apply the next time around.
The only thing I would add to that is let HCC tell you no instead of you telling yourself
exactly.
No.
Same with all these health profession schools too. I can't tell you how many students I had. I'm not going to apply to Harvard because I would never get accepted, and I'm not going to apply I never be able to afford it. And every time they do, the four that I know that said that to me, they all applied, they all got accepted, they all got full rides. And they're some of the best students that went to Harvard School of Public Health. So let us tell you no, not yourself.
And we have another question. Are the internships in person or hybrid, or is there an option?
So we don't know what's going to happen this year with COVID. I mean, the next cycle. Historically, pre-pandemic, all of HCC internships were in person for 30 years. Now, I would say that this past year, I would say that probably 50 to 60% were in person or hybrid. And then there was a fair amount that were virtual. Hopefully next year, we're going to be back to a lot more being in person or hybrid. But there are still some that will be virtual, and we do have this virtual health equity scholars program, because I know that many people can't do an in-person one, or they can't do it. Maybe you're living in a geographic area where there's not exactly what you want, but you could do a virtual one somewhere else and exactly what you want. So we'll probably have a combination.
And then we have one other question. For those of us that are in a community college, do you have any recommendations on how to split their time figuring out which school they'd like to go to and balancing what their end goal in healthcare is?
That's a great question. I would say it's important to think about the reason we started with what are the hot health careers and how you decide which direction. I think it matters, which health career and which direction that you at least are going in, to see if the school that you're transferring to, will set you up well, for that path. And do they have programs? Are they some of these schools that I mentioned to you that you need to look on the HCI Healthcare Access and Information website that got funding for these? I encourage that to look at these programs that got funding for the health career opportunity programs. They're going to have resources, workshops. They're going to have summer research programs, paid internships, peer advising. So I would look at schools where you think that they are going to do a really good job of preparing you for the health career that you are interested in, and where they have student clubs in health, where they have they have advising programs and summer programs and those kinds of things. I'd look at one where you're going to be happy though too, right? You should go to some place where a lot of this all comes down to fit, right? A fit for you in a certain type of environment, and a fit for you in terms of the kind of profession that's the best fit for you, and the graduate school that's a good fit for you too. So someplace where you're going to get supported to pursue health careers, and where you're going to be able to be happy and to thrive, and where you're going to grow. It may not be one that might be uncomfortable. Like me going to business school at Berkeley was an uncomfortable experience for me, but I grew a lot from it. But I was up for that experience. So if you're up for some growth, when you're uncomfortable, you're about to grow. Then if you're up for discomfort, but you think you can thrive in that environment, I guess those are some things I would look for.
Yeah, and I think the person was also asking a question about transferring. So it doesn't really matter where you transfer to what school you want to end up to, but every community college has a transfer center that you could visit. They also visit your campuses, look at the requirements each school and program has, but I think, and also visiting the school. So if you are from somewhere, if you grew up in Berkeley or San Francisco, and you've always lived in the city, going and living in the middle of going to Merced, which is more rural area, will you be happy? Have you ever experienced that, or that's something you want to experience? Vice versa, if you've always been in a rural area, and if you go to school in San Francisco State or Berkeley, where you can't really have a car, it's really challenging to have a car. So, or suburbia or vice versa. And so probably visiting those schools is really important, but also connecting with the transfer center and also their requirements.
Yeah, and I think those things, plus the things I was saying, like seeing how much support, for your transfer purposes, how much support are you going to get provided in that school you're going to pursue your health career, and can you be happy there? But yeah, Jubin's points are right on target. There's a question about virtual internships. I can go a little bit longer if other folks can, but if you want to cut it off, that's fine, up to you all. But for virtual internships, you basically get to work on projects, you go to meetings, you can attend community events. You're just doing them you're doing it via Zoom or by some other kind of platform, rather than, and it can be helpful. You don't have to commute, you don't have to park, you don't have to pay for those kinds of things. You can be at home and you can still be experiencing a health organization and networking with health professionals. You might do shadowing virtually. You can be in all of HCC's workshops and those things. So there's a lot of things you can benefit. It's not the same as being in person, but it still can be a really valuable learning experience. And some of you in the virtual ones sometimes may have you come in, for a part of the time if you're close enough.
And then
Madeline, you're chopping up on my end at least.
Yeah.
For students that have been out of college for more than 3 years, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I think the question was if we are more than 3 years out of college, we might not qualify for HCC. Do you have any advice for programs for more non-traditional students?
I think this is where the internships are probably gonna come in. The informational interviews. I think this is where going to do more informational interviews with people, building a relationship in that informational interview that you have, doing it perhaps with people from the school in which you've graduated, or others that in your network that would be supportive, being able to strike up an internship through something like that, might be helpful. I do think looking for a job. I mean, maybe if you're out for more than 3 years, maybe an internship isn't necessarily the way to go. Maybe it's getting a job of some kind. Like I mentioned, a community health worker, a health navigator, a health coach, a peer support specialist, a mental health specialist, a population health analyst, like getting some kind of a role that gets your foot in the door in an organization, in a job. And then once you're in there, once you're inside, then you can kind of get to meet people and you can see if there are other kinds of roles that might be helpful to you. But I don't know, and a lot of other things. Once you're out for a certain period of time, some places won't consider you for an undergraduate internship anymore because you're far from it, and so that then you might be looking more for actual jobs, which there are going to be more and more jobs for people coming out of who have an undergraduate degree in health, and that's another presentation that we can do.
Does research have to be medicine specific, or is it more about the lab experience itself?
I think a lot of these, it's going to depend, right? Like, depends on what you're going towards. But I do think that, and this is something that going to the UC Davis PreMed conference or the Stanford SUMA conference, which will be in February, SUMMA, and going to talk to medical school people about what kind of experiences that they're looking for. But I think oftentimes research, I've worked with a lot of people who've gone to medical school. Their research experience has been more of a community health research experience or a quality improvement research experience, or with a faculty member looking at evaluating some kind of a health program or something like that. So it doesn't have to be my experience is it doesn't have to be a clinical experience or a lab experience. Maybe you can get lab research experience working as an undergraduate in a lab on campus or something like that. And for a summer experience, you complement that by, okay, I had my lab experience and now I had more of a community experience or a policy and management experience or something like that. So I think a lot of it is what your interests are, what you have access to, and it's then telling the story. And a lot of it's how you tell the story. Well, I had this lab experience as a freshman, I had this community experience as a sophomore, I had this advocacy experience as a junior, and all these things combined have helped me decide that I want to be a doctor who gets a public health degree and is an advocate for women's health rights or something like that. So a lot of it's going to tell us how you tell the story.
The one thing that I would add is that research can be anything. It could be both in the lab or public health research. I have a friend of mine who really didn't want to do any lab research, and so he spent 2.5 years doing research while he was in college in public housing and with a sociologist. So it was a sociology major. He wasn't even a sociology major, but that he grew up in public projects, and the sociologist that he knew, and he's now going to Harvard medical school and decided to do an MD PhD while he was there. So he's doing lab work now, but he basically never did any kind of lab work until medical school, lab research. And so you could do research in anything, public health, sociology. So research can be anything.
Yeah, and if you do stuff you're good at and you care about, I think that's part of your story. I did this research. I did housing research because housing's really an important issue and I really care about it. And I grew up in the projects, and like that's a really good reason for doing housing research. Housing research.
This is actually a follow-up to that question. Being a non-science major such as political science put me at a disadvantage for research and internships.
As an undergraduate, is that for that question? Because I think
they were more asking more for HCC.
Yeah, like for HCC, we have people that come from all backgrounds. We have people that are sociology, that are political science, that are business, that are pre-med, bio. We have a wide range, and we have a lot of internships that political science would be a better fit than pre-med for a lab or something like that. So yeah, you should apply and just do a little homework on like what kind of setting you might want to be in. But yes, it's not a disadvantage whatsoever to be from that kind of a background. And then the question here from Alexandra about, is HCC recommended for somebody who's applying to graduate school or medical school? Absolutely. We have tons of our HCC students that do HCC one summer, and then they apply to graduate school. We have a whole workshop on how to apply to graduate school, how to write a statement of purpose, all kinds of things. We connect you to medical school folks. Tons of people are in HCC, and then they get a letter of recommendation from their HCC preceptor or an HCC staff member. They get something that really looks good on their medical school application. We have an MCAT prep course discount for folks who want to do that. So absolutely, being able to be in HCC is an advantage for people going to graduate school.
Somebody wanted to know about part-time job at being a phlebotomist as a pre-med.
Well, I think that sounds like, I think anything you can do to get some exposure to work with patients or just being in a health setting of some kind. And I think those are all our useful experiences. And a lot of it's going to be how to tell the story about what you did. And then someone wanted to talk about health policy and management. Health policy and management is the management of health organizations like hospitals, like every type of health organization, hospitals, health plans, medical groups, like doctors. I was the management person for a group of physicians. They have a practice they have to run. They have to hire employees. They have to buy equipment. They have to schedule patients. They've got to provide quality of care. They've got to negotiate contracts with health plans. So health policy and management are the people, health management people are the people who are involved in managing organizations that are either delivering care or are providing public health services or advocacy services, to communities. And there's entry, mid, and senior level roles. You can be in a generalist, or you can be in an area like finance or marketing or outreach or evaluation or something like that. And then the policy side of it are people who want to work on changing policies at the state level, at the federal level, at the county level, at an institutional level, and work on the process of either doing policy research, policy, community organizing, policy advocacy, trying to influence the policy process. So you can improve health by taking care of individuals, which is really, really important. And those of you who are called to do that, please do that. We need you. And you can improve health by creating policies that create the conditions for people to be healthy, that give them access to care, that create a workforce that reflects the population. All those things that improve how payment is done, or by managing organizations to improve the care that they offer and offer certain kinds of services that populations need. So the whole point of where I started here is your authentic health career. You need to ask yourself, do I want to am I going to make the biggest difference and be happy every day by taking care of individual patients, or by setting policies that affect coverage for everybody in California, or a combination, or everything in between? You just need to get the exposure through internships, through informational interviews, through mentorships to figure it out. Get some paid experience, get your graduate degree if that's what you want to do, and you will make a tremendous difference. But the world is yours to choose. You just got to figure out which path is the best one for you. Hopefully today was helpful in that regard and helping you get an internship too.
The only thing that I would add is Mr. Oxendine has helped more people than the average primary care doctor in a clinic. I could say that
this is true. No, this is true.
I could be very bold in that statement and get away with it because he's done a lot of policy changes at the state and federal level, advocated for funding, and so he's helped a lot more patients indirectly than a doctor in a community clinic that sees 30 patients a day or 40 patients a day. Mr. Oxendine has done things that affect 40 million people on a much, much larger scale. So
yeah, we need people to do both, right? We need people to take care of those 40 patients a day and do a really good job of it, and be culturally humble and provide good language skills. We need people to do that, and we need people to do the policy and management. So the question is, which is the right fit for you? That's the key, right? Which is you being honest with yourself and your families, and then getting the exposure and experience and mentorship to know which path is right for you. And then, as you've been said earlier, I got to go back to, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you've got to go for it. You've got to go for the internships that you want, the health professions training programs that you want. Never self-select yourself out of a profession or a school. Let those folks do it. And you know what? They're not, for the most part, they're not going to, because you all are amazing. You're going to be really successful. They're going to want you. So I'm looking forward to seeing you as you advance in your authentic health career.
Well, we've gone a little bit over your time. If anybody has last second questions, ask or forever hold your peace. But yeah, we've gone over and Mr. Oxendine, I'm sure, has other things to do today, so don't want to keep him for too long.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me again, and I look forward to continuing to support you all on your